more powerful than any that anyone or family could have experienced, because it can persist for 4 generations. But God's mercies can prolong for 1,000 generations. Isn't that hopeful? That says hope to me. Very hopeful. Showing mercy to 1,000 generations, those who love me and keep my commandments. Let me say from the get-go, beloved, that there are no perfect families. There are none. And it's quite interesting that the first family that was created perfect didn't stay perfect. And ever since then, families are imperfect. Some families may be a little better than some, but no families are perfect. So we would do well by not comparing our family to any other family, because there are no families on earth that are the measure. There are certain markers, there are certain principles that we can live by that can make our families, make us and our families live more fulfilled lives. But no family as such is perfect. No individuals are perfect. But one thing I know for true, broken people will build broken families and broken relationships. So in the pursuit of healing, when healing is necessary, we must begin with ourselves. Bringing the best version of ourselves into our families. One of the things that I have seen working with people, especially when you're working with families and sometimes with couples, they always come into the counseling space believing that the other person is the problem. Doc, if you could just fix him, if you could just fix her, we will all be so happy. But the truth is that no one person in a relationship is the problem. The problem is the problem in the relationship. You didn't get that? The problem is not the person. The problem is the problem that is in that system of the relationship. So the questions that arise are, how can you measure the ways in which your own family weighs up to the ideal to better understand your own need for healing? A second question is, how can the understanding of your own family system allow you to engage healthier relationship practices? How can an understanding of the way family systems work may lead you on a road towards change? That's the reason why we will be working with that inventory that you received some time ago. So let's go straight to it. Let's begin by defining family. Well, when I get that back. So let's define family. A family is a small socio-economic system populated by individuals related by reciprocal loyalty and affection, which consists of a home that remains throughout the years and decades. Their members enter through birth, adoption, or marriage, and they are excluded only through death. So that's a definition of family. Family has many iterations. The contemporary study of family yielded information documented in the literature that shows a variety of different families, of different definitions, rather, surrounding the postmodern family system. The first that we find is the natural or biological family. The natural or biological family. The natural or biological family, its members enter by birth or by blood ties. Within this system, we find a mother, a father, and siblings. The second type of postmodern family is the adopted family. The adopted family, yes, the members enter by legal adoptions processes. That's how it is comprised. The third type of postmodern family is family of origin. Family of origin. Did that go by? No? Try it again. There you go. So the family of origin refers to the family where an individual was born. It's like the natural or biological family. Then we have, and maybe you have heard this term before, we have the nuclear family. The nuclear family is created by marital relationships and the children, if there are any. The fifth type of postmodern family is family of procreation. The family of procreation. It is composed of individuals in a marital relationship from which children are born. The sixth type of family is the extended family. The extended family includes several nuclear families plus other individuals who are related by blood and by marital ties or even by adoption. And number 7 is the intact or complete family. It represents the family that includes father, mother, and natural or adopted children who are living in the same home. And number 8 is the single parent family. The definition, actually, the name actually gives a definition. It's a family where the children are being raised by one of the parents. Number 9 is the pre-marriage family. We know it sometimes as the blended family. It is composed of a dynamic where one or both individuals are going into a second marriage, or in some cases with children of previous marriages. So, why are we referring to the family as a system? What is a system? A system is basically a holistic approach to seeing and also to understanding families. Every part of the family and the family life and the dynamics within the family that drives the behavior and interactions among the members responds to an invisible system that drives it. And if you take a step back and think for a little bit, think about your own family, your family of origin where you grew up. Think about your family currently that you have built. There are certain things that are present, certain things that sometimes are not said but expected. That's part of the system. And when you're in the system, you may not notice some of the dynamics of the system because you look at it as a part of your being. It's just who we are. It's just how we do things. But a system is any identifiable whole. I think I have a slide for that. Yes. A system is any identifiable whole, which is composed of interrelated individual parts. Thank you. So, and I'm sure, well, let me say, maybe it's possible that many of you have studied systems in school in different subjects. And you have learned the saying that says that when one part within a system is affected or changed in any way, it changes the entire system. And that is true. I can remember that I had two brothers at home. My father, before getting married to my mother in his youthful days, he had a son that we met, the family that is met, when he was already a teenager and we were still young kids. And after that, he became pretty much part of our family. However, he never lived with us. We were 4 sisters and 3 brothers, 7 kids at home. When I was 15, and one of my brothers, the one that I follow, was 17, he tragically died, went missing for a few weeks, and then was found dead. That event was something that affected our family system. The role that he played within that system and how all of us interacted having him as a member in our system. I always think about my family as before and after that event. Everything changed after that. And you perhaps can think about your own family and perhaps events that happened that impacted the family and changed the trajectory of the family, changed the dynamics and the way how people relate within the family. Do we have a witness? Yes? Okay. So that's what a system is. A system is a whole, an organism that has several parts, and those parts are interacting with each other and also affecting how each other actually responds. So in order to understand any system, one must begin by identifying the boundaries around that system. The way boundaries work in a family and a family system has a lot to do with how its members relate to the world that they live in. This study or this analysis of family is important in order to gain understanding into why we are the way we are in the present. So the first reason why you receive the assessment that you receive is this: we have better understanding of who we are and how we were wired. All of us were wired in a certain way, and that makes us react to life the way we react to life. When 2 people get married, there are 2 people who were wired differently, who now come together and try to bring their 2 different wirings to coexist. And one thing I know for sure that does not work: if we enter into that relationship thinking, oh, this home has to be exactly like the home I grew up in was. Because remember, both of you grew up in two different homes. So the dynamics are not the same. And if both individuals want their new home to be exactly like the one they came from, what that says? We're going to have what? Conflict. Absolutely. So I always tell couples I work with for premarital counseling, in premarital counseling, is this: appreciate the home you came from, celebrate it and honor it, but both of you now together co-create a new system, one that is uniquely yours and not a copy of where you're coming from. Sure enough, if there are good things that you can import, bring it in. But you must co-create something new. That's why the Lord said in his word, you shall leave mother and father. Not that you're abandoning them, but you're leaving behind what was, because now you're starting something new. You're starting a new system. So the second reason is you will be able to see and understand your family as more than just a collection of individuals. You'll be able to see it as a unified whole that is controlled by systemic, invisible rules. The second reason is to maximize, or the third, maximize the potential for change. As I said earlier, we can only change what we can see. And unless we see it, we will not know first that it needs to change, if there is need, and we would not know what we're working with and working for. So as understanding increases, so does the potential for change, because without that, change is, as I said, impossible. So once we understand the dynamics at work in our families of origin, it will shed a light on why we have some of the preferences that we have and why we approach life in the way we approach it. And understanding can give us the power to make decisions to impact a future generations. So to change a family system, we must address the type of boundaries that surround and protect it. There are three major types of boundaries. Let's look at those quickly. Three major types of boundaries that surround families. The first one is rigid boundaries. They are too strong. They can be likened to walls without windows or doors. They are often impenetrable, and we cannot move across those boundaries. Have you met families that have rigid boundaries? Don't say who. Just say to yourself, yes, I have. The second type of boundaries are diffuse boundaries. They are too weak and can be likened to enclosing our property with paper fences. It does not take much to go through them. People with diffuse boundaries may say no to something, but they change their mind with just a little pushing. And then we have the, oh, it's there, oops. Too much now. Then we have the flexible boundaries. And these are healthy boundaries. Flexible is not a bad thing. They can bend when they need to bend. If the circumstances warrant it, then it will flex a little bit. A no can be changed into a yes, not because the person who said no feels guilty or coerced, or whatever the word is, coerced, but rather they can say yes if it makes sense to say yes, if it warrants the circumstance. You see, flexible boundaries allow the other person to say no. The person who asks is then able to accept the no and find another way to accomplish whatever task was needed. So this brings us now to the family system inventory that you received. Now, how many fill out your inventory? How many fill it out? I'm going to be like a professor now asking for homework. And the rest of you, what happened? The cat eat your homework? All right, so for this dynamic to be impactful, it will be good that you can do it. So if you haven't done it, please, let's take a moment for you to do it. Now, the questions that are asked in this inventory are about your family of origin, not your current family that you have built, but rather your family where you grew up. Think about yourself as a child growing up. Those questions are applicable to that. Think about your family of origin, your growing up family, the family that brought you up, and you answer those questions. So we're going to give a few minutes for you to do that, and then afterwards I'll walk you through the scoring of it, and then we're going to break down what it means, how we can interpret what it means. How is that Jeopardy music now? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think I see folks putting their pens down, so I'm going to assume that you are done. So this inventory measures two continuums in family systems. It measures the adaptability scale within families, and it measures the attachment scale within families. So this is the way how you will tabulate your scores. All of the answers that you scored with a 2, with a score of 2, add them all up, and that is going to go to show your results on the adaptability scale. The sum total of your scores of 2, your 2 scores, will go to the adaptability scale. All of the scores of 1 and 3, all the scores of 1 and scores of 3 in your answers, the sum total of those will go to your attachment scale. And the scale is that little scale in the bottom that has all those numbers and so on and so forth. So that's where you will circle the sum total, either on the adaptability or on the attachment scale. So the adaptability scale has 3 areas. It has the 2 extremes, and then it has the middle well, that's the inventory. So to be clear, so your totals, the 1s and the 3s and the 2s, you will put your totals wherever they fall, either on the adaptability or the flexibility, the attachment scale. So remember, the adaptability scale, the sum total is of all the scores of 2. And the attachment scale is the sum total of all the scores of 1 and 3 in the answers to your questions. So the adaptability scale has 3 areas in the continuum. The 3 areas in the adaptability scale are the rigid family, the adaptable family, and the chaotic family. Let's talk a little bit about this. The adaptability continuum has to do with how ready is that family to adapt or to adjust to change. How they relate to change or how they relate to improvement. Let us talk about before we talk about the families, the type of families. How many fell under, your score fell as a rigid family of origin? How many was raised in a rigid family? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where I scored 2. My family, when I did this, I fell rigid on this scale, this adaptability scale. I'm sorry? You're not in Is it way gone? So then that means they're strong rigid. So let's talk about this for a little bit. Did I have a... Yes, so let's talk about the rigid family. Very interesting family. The rigid family tends not to allow too much expression of emotions. I can speak from my experience. If you are going through something that's upsetting and you have to give an account to your parents for whatever it is that you did, and you getting all emotional about it, you start crying and what have you, I will usually hear an expression that goes something like this: what are you crying for? Do you want me to give you something to cry for? So there was not a lot of window for you to be expressing all this emotion. There had to be a justifiable reason, at least in the minds of the authorities within the family, for you to be expressing whatever emotion you are expressing. Now, the result of rigid families, and by the way, I'm speaking here in generalities. So I'm not saying that this is an exact prescription of how the families, but I'm speaking in generalities, and you will see what things applied if you had that experience or not. The results, generally, of rigid families is that a great deal of anger builds up because there is not enough room to process certain things, to negotiate certain situations, so it is compressed, it is suppressed, so a lot of anger develops as a result. And people will manifest this in different ways. Sometimes, and by the way, anger is not always a bad thing. Are you with me? As a matter of fact, the Bible says a lot of time that God was angry, so if that was bad, then God is bad. Anger is a physiological and emotional response to a point of pain or something that causes frustration or fear. Even the Bible says, be angry. And it's an imperative, it's written in the imperative, be angry. And then it says, but sin not. So the issue is not being angry, but what we do with that anger. Some people uses that anger that may arise from growing up in a rigid family, and they become very driven in their life and high achievers. So that's a positive way of channeling that anger, if anger is present. But this anger many times is expressed in indirect and sometimes even in manipulative ways. This family, the rigid family, is a very authoritarian family. Authority is strong. Leadership is clearly defined and recognized. Everyone knows who the boss is. There is no doubt about that. And no one crosses the boss. No one questions the boss. No one. At least if you want to get out alive, right? So, rigid families tend to be very rule-oriented or rules-oriented. The rules are very specific, sometimes can feel endless. The number and the scope of them, and largely the rules are non-negotiable. Why can't we? Because I said so. Case closed. So, when the rules are broken, though, punishment is swift and is also stern. I can remember my dad had many rules. He was the authority figure in my home growing up. And many times when we were acting up, mostly my brothers and I, my sisters, they were well behaved. You know, girls couldn't do much. They couldn't leave the house, stuff like that. And the boys, even though we were younger, we could leave the house, go out, go play ball, do all, and then come back home. And it's just recently, not recently, but a few years ago that I recognized how the world of a male in this world is very different from the world of a female. Because my sisters were older than we were, but they could not leave the house. But we were free to leave the house, to go kick ball, go play, do all kinds of stuff. And that is a different subject, so let me get back to this. But if we were acting up in some of our exploits around the neighborhood, getting into fights and all kinds of stuff, and then people coming to the house to complain about us, me and my brothers, sometimes when my mother could not deal with the barrage of events that kept coming, she would just say, "Wait till your father get home." And then the judge and executioner will, when he come home, and she throw all those complaints, and then, you know, he will execute judgment. So my father had one of the rules he had was, my door closes at 9:30 at night. Whoever is not in here when 9:30 comes and I go to my bed, they will remain wherever they are. And hanging out with the boys again, you know, boys in the neighborhood hanging out. Me and my brothers came home one night at 10 o'clock. And that was my last night coming home 10 o'clock. Because when we rang the bell, it was silent. What happened? My father went to the breaker. He turned off the switch for the bell because he did not want to be interrupted out of his sleep, and he went to sleep. Once we did that and did not hear the bell ring, we understood. The door is locked, and it shall not be opened. So that was a rough night, sleeping in the garden. And I vowed that night, this will not happen to me again. I learned my lesson. So I'm giving that as an example of a rigid family. There was no negotiation. I mean, we were right there in the neighborhood. We weren't doing anything necessarily bad. You could give us a little slack and say, 10:30, okay. You know where we were, the same corner that we were always at, you know, so at least I'm reasoning that now. But in a rigid family, that's no negotiation. I said 9:30, then that's it. Case closed. Nothing else to be talking about. So this family, a rigid family, needs to surrender their, what I call their idolatry of rules, and embrace mercy. The other extreme of the adaptability family is the chaotic family. The chaotic family. The chaotic family is the opposite of the rigid family. In that family, there's often expressions of emotions, but there is very little structure within the family as such. The meaning of rules, if there are any at all, seems to be superficial and not very significant. The resulting impulses and volatility that are in that family, they stir up a different type of anger among the members of this type of family. There is Virtually no leadership in the chaotic family. Everyone is a law unto themselves. No one takes charge in a consistent basis. What leadership there is exercised sporadically, first by one member of the family, then by another. The rules are largely unwritten and unspoken. They can change without warning at the whim of whatever happens to be taking place at the time. Outsiders can seldom discern patterns of order to the relationships. Those who marry into a chaotic family, is almost impossible for them to decipher what is happening at any given moment. Have anyone ever known any chaotic families? Yes. I knew a few. And what is interesting is that when you grew up in a rigid family and you see a chaotic family, you think that you would like your family to be like that. You think that because, man, those kids are so free. You know, they can get home at any time. And you know, they're not going to get in trouble. It's just like, hey, your family's so cool, man. Your dad, your mom and your dad, they're so chill. Man, I wish my parents were like that. But that has its downfalls. Now, I neglected to ask this. A rigid family, what are some positive things that can result from a rigid family? Structure, See that? Dependability. Consistency. Say that? Discipline. I give you another one. Respect for authority. So those are some good things. Now, what are some good things that could come out of a chaotic family? Creativity. You got to fend for yourself. Autonomy. You got to learn to figure it out and make sure you can navigate life without no one telling you what to do. What else? Freedom? Is it really? Well, perhaps one thing that can be learned in a chaotic family is you learn to be vulnerable. In other words, you learn how to feel free, to give yourself permission to express your emotions without fear that it's going to cost you something. So, acceptance. Yes. On this, that's the opposite of positive. Disregard for the rules. Yes. Say that again. Understanding. Yeah. I would say what I'm hearing you say is to be accepting. They are accepting of others because, you just be who you are and it's fine. It's good. I mean, there are some positive. But of course, there are some downsides to that. And some of the downsides are that you may not know limits. You may not know when enough is enough. You may not know when to stop. Yes. Stress. It depends. Because more stress can be created because you're so free, you get yourself in trouble that you should not get into. By trying things you don't need to try. I always tell folks, we cannot miss what we never had, but sometimes chaotic families can give the false notion that in order to enjoy life, you have to just try everything. No balance. Yes. And as we can see, no extreme is healthy. This family, the chaotic family, needs to surrender their lying to themselves that they don't need rules. Rules are not a bad thing. rules can protect us. When the rules are too rigid, that's when it can be a negative thing. But we need that balance. Then we have the adaptable family. The adaptable family, oops, get back here a little bit, yes. The adaptable family is a healthy balance between the rigid and the enmeshed, or the chaotic rather, family. It offers clear but flexible leadership, but healthy and adjustable discipline. Everyone knows who is in charge, yes, but they also know that the leader is someone who you can talk to and reason with. So, it is just striking that balance. We need rules, but we also need some flexibility, some freedom. And keeping that balance where it doesn't go too far one way or the other, so it can be healthy. So let's talk about the attachment scale now, which is the other scale. And in the attachment scale, we have 3 areas of this continuum. We have the disengaged family, we have the enmeshed family, and then we have also the attached family. The attachment continuum, the issue along this continuum has to do with personal and family boundaries. Let's talk about the disengaged family for a little bit. The disengaged family, as the name suggests, this family is marked by its extreme lack of emotional bonding. And there are complete studies about bonding, and bonding is crucial to every person, especially in the early months and years of a child's life. Depending on the interaction that that child had with their caregiver, they can develop different types of boundaries that can be a boundary that is clingy, a boundary that is totally disengaged and disattached. So there is a rather attachment. Did I say boundary? I meant attachment. There is a whole attachment study that shows that the level of attachment that we experience in our childhood, early years, early months in childhood, will determine how we attach to others later on in life. And as I studied about that, it became clear to me that it can even affect our attachment with God. When our attachment with our parents was interrupted for whatever reason. So a disengaged family is marked by extreme lack of emotional bonding. Neither closeness nor loyalty are developed in this type of family. Disengaged families value independence and relationships outside of the family. They experience very little togetherness. It is very common in this type of family, the phenomenon that we call the scapegoat, where one person in the family is usually assigned all the ills of that family. And that person is looked upon as the bad goat, the bad. You know, I was resisting saying the black sheep because, you know, we always attach, something negative to blackness. So then that means, oh, okay, you black, then you something wrong with you. You're a black man, you're a black woman. So let me say, the scapegoat, the white sheep. Now, so someone who takes the blame for everything. This family needs to surrender from selfishness. You know, I remember, I think it was 1999, when we had, at least in my mind, the first school shooting that started off the trend of school shootings in this country. Was it Columbine? Yes. I remember being struck by the parents of the kids who perpetrated the assassinations. The what? Yes, with their trench coats, and they hid the weapons in there, went into the school and shoot up. That the parents did not know that these kids had all these weapons in their room, and they're living in the same house. How can that be? In my mind alone, at least, that was a very disengaged family. Because I'm thinking about growing up. There was nowhere to hide anything in your room. Much less a whole bunch of long guns and rifles and all of that stuff, and nobody saw that in the same house. So, because everyone was just living an independent life, even children, it lended itself for something like this. Yes, my brother. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, that being what it is, I believe that every family needs to co-create the system that they want to use and to work for themselves, despite of what has been said in the general culture. Because here's the irony. The irony is that if those same kids end up in the penal system, even as adults, they have no privacy. And somebody's going to walk into their cell, because not even a room, and turn over their bed and do all kinds of stuff, and they have no recourse. They can't say, no, please don't come in. So I believe those things have to be negotiated. And here's the truth, that what you just described has been exported to other countries as well. I was born and raised in Costa Rica, in Central America, and when I travel back, I see the commercials and all of that, and it's good when it's not extreme. You see commercials talking about children are people too, which is true, And children need their privacy, and parents need to knock their children's door before they go in and all that stuff. That's okay, you can knock. But a parent should be able to have in their home, in the household, there should be transparency in terms of what comes in this home, what is allowed in here, and what is not. And that is not, and you know that, I know, I'm not saying that to you, and that is not being a bad parent at all. That is protecting your family, establishing healthy boundaries. Because where there is no boundary, anything can come in, and anything that you don't want to go out will go out as well. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And in that case, that father, he himself had no boundaries. Because why would you go and purchase an AK-47 and give it to your, 13-year or 14-year-old son who has issues already as it is, and give it to him as a gift for Christmas? Huh? No, he killed 2 teachers. Oh, I got you. I got you. Right. You're right about that. It was almost giving him license to kill himself. Yes.
But in some cultures, such as his, that's a rite of passage. To buy a gun and give it to your son.
True
and
that.
then go hunting and everything else. That's a rite of passage.
That is true. That is true. So let me say something about cultures. You know, cultures are formed when a behavior is practiced by a group, then others within that group are encouraged to practice it, and then after a while, it has been practiced so widespread that now everybody in that group believes that's who they are. And that's how things are supposed to be. And nobody ever stops to think or to consider, is this working for us? Is this a good thing? And that's one example of so many things in this country, unfortunately, where you cannot even have a conversation about it. Because the moment you have a conversation, you are labeled with some extreme. Oh, you are this or that. And so everyone is forced into silence to the detriment of everyone. There is a Spanish philosopher called Benito Juárez. Benito Juárez had a saying that said, let me say it. I'm trying to translate it. El respeto al derecho ajeno trae la paz. Basically what it says is, respecting the rights of others will bring peace. So where your rights begin, my rights end. So I shouldn't impose on someone else something that is my right. Therefore, even when I have a right, I have a limit with it, whereby if it's going to harm you, then that's where it ends. And the example of, I still give you the word, my sis, and the example of what the sister just mentioned is, yes, it's a rite of passage for some of them without you, but I should think, okay, I have this right, but if this right I have has the potential to harm someone else, then it limits how far my right can go. Does that make sense? Yes, my sis. Yes, respecting the rights of others brings peace. Yes. All right, so the other type of family here now is the enmeshed family. This is a very, very interesting type of family. Enmeshed. There it is. The enmeshed family is so entangled together that it becomes difficult for one to tell where one person ends and the other begins. They are characterized by an extreme sense of closeness, so much so that almost any expression of independence or autonomy is seen as disloyalty to the family. This kind of false loyalty is very common in the type of family that is enmeshed and clannish, and if you touch one, you touched all of us. Boundaries, though, are virtually non-existent within this type of family. However, there are very rigid boundaries towards anyone outside of the family who's trying to get in. I remember a case of an enmeshed family that I knew, that the mother of this enmeshed family, she declared at one point, "Before I die, all my babies will come back home." And she would say that all the time. "Before I die, all my babies will come back home. Before I die, all my babies will come back home." And then, little by little, over the years, you start seeing one child divorce their spouse, move back home. Another divorce their spouse, come back home. Another, and all of them except one. This was one son who said, "My family is crazy. And he moved to the other side of the country because he was not going to go through that ritual of divorcing his spouse and going back home. And it was not like the mother was saying, "Leave your spouse," or whatever, but just the language and the emotional manipulations that are present within the dynamics makes them feel a false sense of guilt that remaining with the spouse and not coming back to be with mama is somehow a betrayal to the family. Enmeshed. An enmeshed family is one whereby, yes, you got married, but you're my brother. So because you're my brother and you got a car, your car is also accessible to me. So I have a key even though you have a wife. So I will come and take the car, and I don't tell your wife that I gone with the car, and the wife thinks somebody stole the car, and she's calling the husband frantic. "Somebody stole the car is not in the driveway." And he's like, "No, I don't think so. Let me call Andrew and see if Andrew, you took the car? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll call the wife. "Don't worry, my brother has the car." And she'd be like, "But I'm home, and I have your baby home, and I need to go to the supermarket, and no, I don't have a car, and your brother has the car. Why didn't he?" So you can just understand what that can provoke. Have you ever seen any enmeshed families? Yes. Say it again. The royal family. I see the royal family, they have some characteristics of enmeshed. However, they have a lot of characteristics of the disengaged. The mafia? Mafia is really meshed. Because you just look at one of them wrong. The next thing you know, your house is riddled with bullets. Some will be, yes. There are some cultures that are more prone to be enmeshed than others. Yes.
Is there a correlation between the first category, the adaptability scale, and now your attachment?
Yes, there is definitely a correlation. Your attachment will follow your attachment will always follow how close or how disengaged they are. Your adaptability, rather, will follow how close. For example, a rigid family, and this is interesting, the phenomenon is a little interesting, because some rigid families, even though they are rigid in their adaptability, can also present as enmeshed. So they have these strict rules and everything else, and that caused them to be very to themselves and very enmeshed with each other. Also, we can find a disengaged family could correlate very well with a chaotic family. They're chaotic, but they're disengaged from each other. There's no closeness really. Everything is just up in the air. So you can have different combinations depending on what is really going on in that family and what is driving them strongly. Yes.
All right. There are factors that weigh into what type of family you are. Like, if you make a conscious decision, all right, that we're going to be a disengaged family, or we're going to be a chaotic family, meaning everybody is autonomous, they do their own thing. But let's say proximity could be a reason. Like, there's some people, they live across the world, but that doesn't mean that they're not in tune with their family. So does that still make them chaotic? Does that still make them disengaged? There's some people check in every day, and some people check in every week. Some people check in like once a year, 2 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good question. Generally, enmeshed families will very seldomly like move away, one member move away. Usually it would be, if one member moves away, there is always a plan for all the others to move too and be there. Very seldomly, unless there is a break from the dynamics itself, very seldomly they will just be in separate places. Sometimes life circumstances will force that. And even when it forces it, there was always a pull, I'm here, but my family's not here, and I can't function without my family. And there is always looking for, I need to go back to where my family is, because that's where I feel safe.
They're anchored into the family.
Yeah.
That's why they stay together. It's not, all right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
even if they are not in close proximity, and they still want to check in every day, but they wouldn't be able to survive like that if they were really
Right.
an intact family.
Right.
Okay.
But behaviors can be learned. So I'm not saying that they can't overcome it. They can. If they make a concerted decision, I'm going to overcome this, or they understand what is it that is happening, and why is it they feel the way they feel, eventually they can overcome it. The country where I was born, in Costa Rica, people tend to be very enmeshed in general with the culture, with the country, And the reason, and one of the things how you can see that is that usually if you meet anybody from Costa Rica in the United States, they're always going to say to you, I'm going back home. And they always do. Or the next thing you find is that they don't come at all. So when you can find here in the United States a lot of people from different countries, like you find people from Guyana, from Jamaica, from how many Costa Ricans have you ever met? And I will be going home, yes. And it's just things that are part of certain cultures, yes.
It can be good and bad, but I think there's some level of enmeshment, if you want to use that as a word, that is healthy and good.
Yes.
For instance, children get of age, they leave, the home, the nuclear home, nucleus of the home. They go out and make their own homes. They get married, they have children. They may be in separate parts of the United States, other states, than where
Yes.
they grew up. They started having kids. Now they're having kids. When you have kids, you need a level of support system around you. So oftentimes what you will find is, if they're able, some kids may move, not necessarily back to the parents' home, but close, so that they can have the support of a grandparent who can maybe pick kids up from when kids are being dismissed from school, and other things. So that's one example. The other example is, when our elders get old, here in America, we seem to put them away. And I use the term put away, and loosely, but they are put into a long-term care facility. And some long-term care facility may not be the best setting. Some kids are loving enough to maybe have a setup and say, I'm not going to do that to my parent. I'm going to bring them home, or into my home, or a space in my home where I can help care for them or oversee them. And I think that's good and healthy. So that, being enmeshed is not always negative.
And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And as you say that, to your point, I make reference again to Costa Rica, where I was born. When I say we, well, they, you don't find many nursing homes as such, our assisted living, our homes for elderly folks. You don't find many at all. It's very, 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 very few that you will find, and usually would be for perhaps people who were homeless or they didn't have family. But people, and it's cultural that parents grow older, they will stay in either the family home, either a child will move back or some other family member, or they will hire someone to live with that individual in their home, but they're never taken and put in a home somewhere. And as you said that, it just triggered that. I didn't look at it. And as I'm analyzing what you're saying, some level of enmeshment can be a positive thing. It can be good. It keeps families close. It keeps the extended family connected to each other, and that is always a good thing. Yes?
I have a question. In terms of enmeshed families, have you ever heard of any DV situations with an enmeshed family around? Is it possible?
Any deviant, you said?
Domestic violence.
Oh, yes.
With the enmeshed family around?
Within an enmeshed family, yes.
Not within the family itself, but for a child to be in a DV situation having an enmeshed family.
Yes, and I'm going to explain how it usually presents
Okay.
in enmeshed families. It can present in form of incest because people are too entangled together. Sometimes you have multiple iterations of a family living in the same household, and because they are so enmeshed, sometimes there can be blurring of boundaries of, go back to the privacy thing, because a certain extent of privacy is important and it's good and it's healthy. It's not always a bad thing. So that can exist and has present in those type of families sometimes. So in that way, abuse has presented itself.
Okay.
But I think what she's saying is that a child who has a spouse, there could not be domestic violence if the family is a mesh because they have that level of protection.
Oh, that type of domestic family. That's what you mean?
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, thank you for the clarification. Well, yes, because in an enmeshed family, you touch that member, you may not. Especially from, so, and here's the difference. You see, outsiders from an enmeshed family, outsiders, there are strict boundaries for them. When someone wants to join an enmeshed family, they literally have to conform to a lot of things in order to be accepted and received into the clan. So when someone as an outsider is coming in, if that person inflicts some kind of harm on a family member, that person either will be expelled by the entire family or will suffer some serious consequences. But here is the flip side of that, though. When the enmeshed family is so tight and they have this rigid ring around them, protecting from anyone outside coming in, when there is something happening inside involving the family members, the clan, they will cover it so that no one on the outside can find out what's happening. And those are the ways in which sometimes child abuse, incest, and stuff happens, and it's covered up. Kind of like what happened. I think there was a community, a very conservative, strict community in Brooklyn.
Protect from like the shame of it?
It's more than shame. Yes, shame, yes. But the issue with that is that the victim in that situation is don't receive the help that they need.
Right.
Because it was basically like, okay, forget about it now. Let's don't talk about it.
I think that what she was leading to is that they would protect like in a vengeful way. They would protect her in that, oh, I think that my husband or so-and-so is thinking about beating me, or he's thinking about abusing me or something like that, or he's gonna, and then her brothers will come and take care of the situation in another way, rather than, okay, even in an incest, you have a stepfather going on a stepdaughter, and then they find out, and then you see it all the time on Lifetime. And then the mother is like, oh, I don't believe that. I don't believe, they don't believe him. Or they'll say like, shh, don't tell nobody that happened. Okay, that's not what I don't think she was saying. I think there was more leading to the first example where they would come.
Mm-hmm. When someone is looked at as not really being a part of this blood tie, then yes, there can be this revenge kind of stuff going on against that person. Yes.
2 questions. Number 1, within a family, based on your experience in doing this exercise, of the adaptability and attachment, I think. Have you seen the dynamic or responses different from different people in the same family?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Different experiences.
Yes.
Like, you know, you have 7 siblings, right?
Yes.
So, like, the firstborn may have one response, and the last may have a different response. Have you seen that?
I've seen that. As a matter of fact, in my own family, I was doing this workshop in Costa Rica many, many years ago, and my second eldest sister was in the audience, and she did it, and she did not get the results of a rigid family. And I was like, how could you not? And then afterwards, as I analyze it deeper, I realize that her experience growing up was different from mine, because me and my brothers were always getting into so much trouble and always getting punished and always going up against what the rules were and facing that. My experience was, this family is strict. This family is, but for her, it was different. She didn't experience it that way because she didn't get no beating and all that kind of stuff. She was. She stayed at home, but however she conceptualized that, she felt like that was good. So yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yes.
Because it's that, it's like we have that tree. If we're not connected to the tree, it's like I like what you said with the rings. Like that's kind of like with the tree, but it's like it doesn't have that root. So that's what I would say. It's actually the attachment. That's what brother was saying over here. And yeah, I love where the discussion is going. I think we can all help each other, like our families out with this information, and help each other out too. That's really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the secret of this, beloved, is to, yes, there can be some issues in all these iterations of systems, but where we should always orient our mind is try to find what is the positive thing that we can pick, that we can extrapolate from this, so that we can make choices to keep us on a path that is elevating us. Yes, my sister.
Yeah, the attached
Right.
family.
The attached family, yes, is a balanced family. It's a healthy, is a family that takes a little from the enmeshed and takes a little from the disengaged. In other words, individuals have their autonomy. It's okay for you to have friends outside of the family, but also it's okay for you to be close to the family at the same time. So you have that flexibility where you can go, explore, and come back and be attached, know where you came from, know where you belong, and also be willing to meet new people, have new experiences, and come and share with the family at the same time. So having that elasticity, so to speak, where you go and you come and you are part of something and you are part of other things as well, because you will become part of other groups other than your family. So that healthy balance is important, where it's not that you're not attached to the people you came from, or you are so attached to the people you came from that you cannot attach anywhere else. So that balance is important. I saw a hand where it was. Yes, my sister and then my brother. Oh, you have the mic? You go first and then.
So my second question was this. Based on the fact that this survey asks us questions of what our childhood was like, and based on our answers, how do we then evaluate where we are now and see how these responses have become a reality, or have we adapted over time? Because my
So-
childhood is 50 years ago.
Good question. If you have a family at present, take a step back and begin to observe objectively how the dynamics are playing out in your current family. Are you somehow subconsciously replicating what you had growing up, or have you changed anything? And that will be a good gauge rather, to help you see if whether or not you are still there or you have made some tweaks. You could. And it would not be a bad exercise at all. For them to enlighten you of what their experience is. Yes, that would be actually excellent. Yeah.
So the question I wanted to ask is, the questionnaire pretty much is you getting a unconscious view of what your family was without putting in your own perspective on it. How would you describe, or how would you answer someone who feels, although this is projecting that I'm from this type of family, I don't feel that it's a true reflection of my experience? Are they doing sort of like a self-preservation, or not truly accepting what the results have shown? Or could it really be a reality that the results don't match their experience? How would you answer a question like that?
Well, it could definitely be a little bit of that, a little bit of denial of the truth. And it also could be that, well, here's the truth. No family falls totally outside of all of this, because we're there somewhere. But that some of the characteristics don't present in an exact manner is totally possible, because there are no absolutes when it comes to human behavior. We are such complex beings that when it comes to human behavior, we can only speak in generalities. That the general consensus is there is always going to be outliers that are going to fall outside of it, but there will always be elements there present, maybe in smaller amounts, but something will always be there, because all of us have to be either attached or not attached. All of us have to be either flexible or not flexible. So, yeah, statistically, yes. Yes.
Hello. This is my sister. There's 9 of us. So we're looking at our scores, and it's almost similar. But it'd be interesting to see with my other siblings how we would actually see their results, and if it's the same. Like you said, our brothers were raised differently from the girls. So we had a different structure, even though we were in the same home. But we had similar scores, so it's kind of...
Interesting, and thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's important for us to have these types of conversations, especially with our family members, and share and compare notes about our experiences, not as a way of finding fault, or not as a way of pointing fingers or anything like that, but as a way of getting deeper understanding. All of us in this life, and I'm going to end with this, all of us, even now in our current relationships, every experience that we have, whenever there is lack of data or information about what is happening in the moment, we always make up a story in our minds about that situation. And if you're married, and if you are in a marriage that is imperfect like mine, you will find that most of the times when you and your spouse get into some disagreement, it is because one of you or both of you were telling yourself a story about something that was going on that had nothing to do with what was going on. And you react to the story you told yourself and not to what was going on. One of the things that I've begun practicing is that when I'm feeling bothered about something and something is irking me, I would say, when you said X, Y, and Z, the story I am making up is that you wanted to hurt me. And that was a low blow. But that's the story I'm telling myself. That's the story I'm making up. So please help me find peace and fill in the blanks for me. What was really going on? What were you really trying to say? Because if I don't try to find the truth to fill up that data, I'm going to stay with that story that I made up. And I may not react to it at that moment, but at some future time, something is going to happen, and then that file that I put away with that story is going to like, Exhibit A, here it is. And then I'm going to react to that story, and my wife will be looking at me like, you lost your mind? How did you go from this to that? Where is this? Are you crazy? Because I am responding to my story that she knows nothing about. And it's true on the job, it's true on so many different levels. So, and it's possible that with the question that my sister asked, when somebody do this inventory, the story they have told themselves about their family of origin maybe is not aligned with the true facts of what really happened. And it's a way of protecting the myth of what was. And studies, and I'm saying a whole lot of stuff, but studies have shown that our memories are not all reliable. That many of our memories are actually made up. Because we create, there are some pieces that are facts, yes, but there are some other pieces that we create a myth around those memories in order to soothe ourselves. And the same is true on the contrary. When we have had a traumatic experience, sometimes the memories we have about the experience, we have add on more traumatic aspects that really did not happen. And that's what keeps the trauma recurring. And that's why people get stuck in PTSD and stuff like that, because they have not processed the story with the facts of it and then reinterpret it in a way that can bring healing. So the human brain and the human mind is super complex. Yes. Alternative facts. There's been a lot of that going on in recent years in America. A lot of alternative facts and stories people are making up, and they repeat it so much that millions of people start believing it, and it has nothing to do with reality. Yes.
That we take all the protective factors that are related to rigid, chaotic, disengaged, and enmeshed, and keep them, recognize them and keep them, and take all the risk factors and seek to be healed. how do we seek to be healed from all those risk factors that will cause the trauma that we pass on to the next generation?
Excellent question, and there's an excellent place to end as well. We have to ask ourselves this question, or more than one, two questions. What is my best hope for my family and for future generations? And connect with that not as a goal, but as an outcome. What is the outcome? What is my best hope? My best hope is the outcome. What is the outcome I want to have from my family in the present and the future generations? And once you identify that outcome that you like, then ask yourself a second question. When we achieve that outcome, what would that mean to us? What would that mean to me? And that is at an emotional level that we have to answer that question. And once we have the answer to that question, now be intentional about every aspect in your family, in your life, must contribute to that expected outcome. And that's the best answer I can give of how we can make a decisive decision, sorry for the redundancy, but make an intentional decision to get on a journey of healing. I don't believe healing is a destination. I believe it's a journey. And as we are on that journey, we will be living the best version of our lives and the best version of the families that we have. Thank you so much.
We want to thank Dr. Richard for being here with us this afternoon and enlightening us on family dynamics. And as we've listened to you, my hope and my prayer is that we will do less faulty thinking, making up our stories, and bringing more positive aspects into our families. I would want to thank you for that. And before we end, I had to share this with you about, I thought I had it, but I don't have it. But Dr. Richard, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you will probably never forget my name, but thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And prayerfully, we will be able to use this in our families and pass it on to our families, because this isn't something that we should keep to ourselves. It's not that we should go beat our families over the head with it, but to just know where we are and where we need to be. So thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for staying back and being with us for the whole day. And I pray that you will have a prosperous and safe, blessed week to come. And before we leave, I would ask Gordon if he would come and give us closing prayer. No, you, Gordon. Not today? Okay, Gordon. All right. We will have, don't be looking over that, Harold. I see you. Elder Gowie, would you come pray for us, please? Close us out today. It's been a beautiful day. I'm glad to see my goddaughters back there. What happened to my godson? What happened to him? We got to check. But thank you. They came a long way. Bernita came like about, 3 hours away? She came from west of Albany. Thank you. And Pat, she came from Newburgh. And I don't know where some of the other ones came from, but I just want to thank you for sharing yourself with us. Who else? You came from the Bronx? I came from around the corner.
Oh, yes. So good that we could be fellowshipping like this together, learning from each other. Please stand as I pray. Let us pray. Oh, kind Father in heaven, it's with delight, Lord, that I stand before you and our people to say thank you for blessing us with this day and the attendance and from all that has been transpired today. Lord, cause us to be united, to remember each other and to remember the things that we have learned. And Lord, to practice them, to share with others as we live to be better persons. Bless us, Lord, throughout the course of this week and cause us to prosper and to shine for you, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Don't forget this coming Sabbath is Singles Ministries Day. Lisa Mitchell will be our speaker and workshop facilitator next Sabbath. So bring your friends, bring your families, bring your neighbors to be with us. If today was enjoyable to you, you can imagine what next Sabbath is going to be. Have a wonderful week.